Well, hello there. Welcome to a place of calm where the worries of the day gently melt away and peace begins to bloom within you. Tonight, I'll guide you on a journey, a bedtime story that will cradle your mind and ease your heart into rest. Before we begin, let's take a moment to settle into this safe, cozy space. If you can, close your eyes and feel the surface beneath you. Soft, steady, holding you in perfect comfort. Now, let's breathe together. Slowly, deeply. Inhale, and hold it for just a moment. And now exhale, gently letting go of anything that no longer serves you. Feel the air as it flows out, taking with it the weight of the day. Let's do that one more time. Breathe in, filling your body with light and calm. Hold it and release, letting yourself drift just a little further into serenity. Good, that's perfect. You're doing so well. As we begin this bedtime story, imagine the world around you growing softer, quieter, a gentle twilight settling over everything. Allow yourself to be transported to a place where only comfort exists, a space where your dreams can begin to unfurl like the petals of a flower opening in the moonlight. Let my voice be your guide as you drift into this dreamscape where a story awaits, soft, soothing, and full of gentle wonders. So, settle in, get cozy, and let's begin. It was a quiet summer evening in the small, sleepy town of Willowbrook. The sky was a canvas of soft pastels, with streaks of orange and pink blending seamlessly into the deepening blue. Birds chirped their final songs of the day as the crickets began their nightly serenade. For most, it was a time of calm, a time to gather with family and share the events of the day. But for one little boy named Theo, it was just another evening spent alone. Theo lived at the edge of town in a small house with a large, untamed backyard. His parents were busy people, always preoccupied with work or other responsibilities, leaving Theo to his own devices. He didn't mind much, or at least that's what he told himself. He had his books, his telescope, and his boundless imagination. Most nights he'd lie on the patchy grass in his backyard, staring up at the stars, wondering what it might be like to visit them. But tonight was different. As Theo lay on the ground, his eyes fixed on the darkening sky, a sudden streak of light blazed across the heavens. It wasn't like the shooting stars he'd seen before. This one was brighter, closer, and growing larger by the second. His heart raced as the light veered downward, crashing into the far end of his backyard with a soft, muffled thud. Theo bolted upright, his heart pounding. He hesitated for only a moment before scrambling to his feet and racing toward the source of the crash. The grass brushed against his legs, and the cool evening air nipped at his cheeks. When he reached the spot, he gasped. There, nestled in a shallow crater, was something unlike anything he'd ever seen. It was a star, but not just any star. It was small, about the size of a soccer ball, and it glowed with a soft, golden light. Its surface was smooth and warm, pulsating gently like a heartbeat. As Theo stepped closer, the star shivered and emitted a faint, melodic hum. "Hello?" Theo whispered, unsure if the star could hear him. To his astonishment, the star wobbled slightly as if acknowledging him. A thin tendril of light extended from its surface, reaching out toward him. Tentatively, Theo held out his hand. The tendril touched his fingers, and a wave of warmth and emotion flooded over him. It wasn't just warmth, it was sadness, confusion, and an unmistakable plea for help. "You're alive," Theo murmured, his eyes wide. "And you're hurt, aren't you?" The star pulsed faintly in response, its light dimming slightly. Theo crouched beside it, his mind racing. What was he supposed to do? How could he help a fallen star? "Don't worry," he said softly, as if trying to reassure both the star and himself. "I'll help you, somehow." Theo gently scooped up the star, cradling it in his arms. It was surprisingly light, almost weightless, and its warmth spread through him like sunlight on a cold day. He carried it to his favorite spot in the backyard, a small clearing surrounded by wildflowers, and set it down carefully on a blanket. "Okay," he said, sitting cross-legged beside it. "Let's figure this out. You fell from the sky, right? So we need to get you back up there. But how?" The star emitted a series of soft hums, almost like a song, but Theo couldn't understand what it meant. Frustrated, he sighed and rested his chin in his hands. Then an idea struck him. "Wait here," he said, dashing back into the house. Theo returned moments later with his telescope and an old notebook filled with sketches and notes about the constellations. He'd always been fascinated by the stars, tracing their patterns and inventing stories about them. Maybe the answers he needed were hidden among those pages. Under the glow of the star, Theo flipped through his notebook, searching for anything that might help. "Are you from a constellation?" he asked, pointing to a drawing of the Big Dipper. The star pulsed faintly but didn't react strongly. He tried again, pointing to Orion, then Cassiopeia. Each time the star's response was the same, a faint, uncertain hum. Theo sighed, running a hand through his messy hair. "This isn't working," he muttered. He looked up at the sky, frustration bubbling inside him. "How am I supposed to help you if I don't even know where you belong?" The star quivered, and for a moment Theo thought he saw something flicker within its light, an image, hazy and fleeting. He leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. The image appeared again, clearer this time, a vast, swirling expanse of stars, with one particularly bright star at its center. Theo's heart skipped a beat. "That's where you're from, isn't it?" he said excitedly. The star pulsed brightly, its hum rising in pitch. Okay, we can work with this," Theo said, his mind racing. Over the next few hours, Theo devised a plan. He gathered every shiny, reflective object he could find, mirrors, old CDs, even a roll of aluminum foil, and arranged them in a wide circle around the clearing. The idea was to reflect and amplify the star's light, sending it back into the sky like a signal. It was a long shot, but it was the best he could come up with. As he worked, the star watched him, its light flickering with what Theo imagined was curiosity. "Almost done," he said, placing the last mirror in position. He stepped back and surveyed his work. The clearing now glimmered with tiny points of light, like a miniature galaxy. "All right," Theo said, picking up the star and placing it in the center of the circle. "Here goes nothing." He stepped back and waited, his heart pounding. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the star began to hum, its light growing brighter and brighter. The mirrors caught the glow, bouncing it back and forth until the entire clearing was bathed in a radiant golden light. Theo shielded his eyes as the light intensified, reaching upward like a beacon. The hum grew louder, a harmonious melody that seemed to vibrate through the very air. And then, with a final brilliant flash, the star rose. Theo watched, his breath caught in his throat as the star floated upward, higher and higher, until it was just a tiny speck in the sky. For a moment he felt a pang of sadness, but then the star pulsed brightly, a single golden twinkle among the constellations. It was a thank you, he realized, and his chest swelled with a mix of pride and joy. The clearing grew quiet once more, the mirrors and foil now dull in the absence of the star's light. Theo sat down, gazing up at the sky, a soft smile on his face. He didn't feel lonely anymore. Somewhere up there, a little piece of him now belonged among the stars. That night, for the first time in a long time, Theo fell asleep under the open sky, the gentle glow of the stars keeping him company. And as he dreamed, he imagined them whispering stories of their own, stories of bravery, kindness, and a boy who helped a fallen star find its way home. Weeks had passed since Theo helped the fallen star find its way home, but the memory of that magical night lingered in his heart like the faint glow of twilight. Every evening he'd sit outside in the clearing, his telescope pointed toward the sky, scanning for any sign of his star. He liked to think it was watching over him, shining a little brighter just for him. But tonight, something was different. Theo was stargazing as usual, the cool night air wrapping around him like a gentle embrace, when he noticed a flicker of movement in the corner of his vision. He turned his telescope, focusing on a patch of sky near the edge of the Milky Way. At first, he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him, but then he saw it clearly, a faint golden light, growing brighter and moving steadily toward Earth. His heart leaped. Could it be his star returning to him? He watched as the light descended, its path eerily similar to the one he'd seen weeks ago. It arced gracefully across the sky before vanishing behind the trees at the edge of his backyard. Theo didn't hesitate. He grabbed a flashlight and dashed toward the spot, his breath coming in quick bursts. When he reached the clearing, his excitement turned to confusion. Instead of the glowing orb he had helped before, there was something else. A figure stood in the soft grass, bathed in a faint golden light. It was humanoid, but not quite human. Its body shimmered like starlight, and its eyes, two pools of glowing amber, held an otherworldly kindness. "Theo," the figure said, its voice melodic and soothing, like the hum of distant galaxies. "You've been chosen once more." Theo blinked, his flashlight trembling in his hand. "Chosen? For what?" The figure stepped closer, its presence calming. "The star you helped has returned to its place among the constellations, but your act of kindness did more than you realize. It awakened something within you, a connection to the stars themselves. They've sent me to ask for your help." Theo's mind raced. "Help? What do you mean? Is something wrong with the stars?" The figure nodded solemnly. Far beyond what you can see with your telescope, there is a place where the light of the stars is born, a realm known as the Star Forge. It is the heart of the cosmos, where new stars are created and their light is spread across the universe. But something has disturbed its balance. A shadow has crept into the Star Forge, threatening to extinguish its light. If it falls, the stars will fade one by one. Theo's chest tightened. That can't happen. What can I do to stop it? The figure extended a hand, its fingers glowing softly. Come with me. The stars believe in your courage. They believe you can help restore the balance. Theo hesitated. The idea of leaving everything he knew behind was terrifying. But he thought of the star he had helped, of its light returning to the sky, and of the wonder he had felt that night. He couldn't ignore the call. "All right," he said, stepping forward. "I'll do it." The figure smiled, and the clearing around them began to shimmer. The world seemed to dissolve into light, and Theo felt himself being lifted upward, weightless and free. Stars blurred past him in streaks of silver and gold, and he felt a sense of awe unlike anything he'd ever known. When the light faded, he found himself standing in a place that took his breath away. The Star Forge was a vast, glowing expanse, its floor made of swirling stardust that sparkled with every step Theo took. Towering pillars of light rose into an endless sky, and in the center of it all was a massive glowing sphere, the heart of the forge. But something was wrong. Dark tendrils of shadow coiled around the sphere, dimming its light and sending shivers through the air. "This is the shadow I spoke of," the figure said, appearing beside Theo. "It feeds on doubt and fear, growing stronger as the light weakens. You must face it and rekindle the forge's light." Theo swallowed hard. "But how? I'm just a kid. What can I do against something like that?" The figure placed a hand on Theo's shoulder. "You have already shown your strength. You helped a fallen star find its way home, not because you had to, but because you chose to. That light is within you. Trust it." Theo nodded, though his hands trembled. He stepped toward the glowing sphere, the tendrils of shadow writhing like living things. As he approached, a voice echoed in his mind, dark, cold, and full of malice. "You don't belong here," it hissed. "You are small, insignificant. Turn back before you are consumed." Theo froze, fear gripping him. The shadows seemed to grow darker, closing in around him. But then he remembered the star, its warmth and light, and how it had trusted him. He clenched his fists and took another step forward. "You're wrong," he said, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. "I might be small, but that doesn't mean I can't make a difference." The shadows recoiled slightly as if startled by his words. Theo took another step, then another, until he stood before the glowing sphere. He reached out, his hands trembling, and placed them on its surface. Warmth flooded through him, and he closed his eyes, focusing on the light within him, the light of kindness, courage, and hope. The sphere pulsed, its light growing brighter. The shadows writhed and screeched, unable to withstand the brilliance. Theo held on, pouring every ounce of his strength into the sphere. "You won't win," he said firmly. "The stars will shine again." With a final burst of light, the shadows dissolved and the sphere blazed brightly, illuminating the star forge in golden radiance. The pillars of light shone brighter, and the swirling stardust sparkled like a million tiny suns. Theo stepped back, his heart racing but his spirit soaring. The figure appeared beside him, its expression one of gratitude and pride. "You have done it, Theo," it said. "The star forge is whole once more, and the stars will continue to shine because of you." Theo smiled, a warmth spreading through him. "I'm glad I could help, but will I ever see this place again?" The figure's eyes glowed softly. "The star forge will always be with you, Theo. Every time you look at the night sky, you will see its light and know that you are part of something greater." As the figure spoke, the world around Theo began to shimmer once more. He felt himself being lifted, the star forge fading into a sea of stars. When he opened his eyes, he was back in his backyard, the cool grass beneath him and the sky above filled with countless twinkling lights. Theo lay there for a long time, staring at the stars with a newfound sense of wonder. He didn't feel small or insignificant anymore. He felt connected, like he belonged to something vast and beautiful. And somewhere among the stars, he knew they were watching over him, their light a silent thank you for the boy who had saved them. Months had passed since Theo's journey to the Star Forge, but the experience stayed with him like an eternal flame. Every time he gazed at the night sky, he felt a quiet warmth in his chest, a reminder of the connection he had forged with the stars. Life in Willowbrook had returned to normal, yet Theo couldn't shake the feeling that his adventure wasn't over. The stars, after all, had a way of calling to him. One crisp autumn night, Theo sat in his backyard with his telescope. The sky was unusually clear, the stars gleaming like polished gems. As he adjusted the lens, something unexpected caught his eye. Near the constellation Lyra, a new light shimmered. It was faint but unmistakable, flickering erratically as if struggling to stay alight. Theo's heart quickened. He knew this wasn't an ordinary star. Something was wrong. "Is it calling for help?" he wondered aloud. The idea tugged at his heart. If a star was in trouble, he couldn't just sit by and do nothing. As if in answer, a familiar golden glow appeared at the edge of the clearing. Theo turned to see the same celestial figure that had guided him to the star forge. Its form shimmered with starlight, and its amber eyes held a serene urgency. "Theo," the figure said, its voice as soothing as the hum of the cosmos, "the stars need you once more." Theo stood, his pulse racing. "What's wrong?" The figure gestured to the sky. "A young star, newly born, has strayed too far from the celestial currents. It is weak and cannot find its way back to the constellation where it belongs. If it fades, its light will be lost forever." Theo's chest tightened. "How can I help?" The figure extended a hand just as it had before. "You must guide it. Your connection to the stars gives you the power to reach it, but the journey will test you. Are you ready?" Theo hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "I'm ready." The figure smiled, and the clearing filled with a soft golden light. Theo felt the now familiar sensation of being lifted, weightless and free, as the world around him dissolved into the brilliance of the cosmos. When the light faded, he found himself in a vast expanse of shimmering currents that flowed like rivers of light through the void. "This is the celestial drift," the figure explained, standing beside him. "Follow the currents and they will lead you to the lost star. But beware, the drift is unpredictable and shadows still linger in its depths." Theo nodded, taking a deep breath. "I'll find it." The figure faded, leaving Theo alone in the drift. He glanced around, marveling at the beauty of the flowing light. But there was no time to lose. He spotted a faint, flickering glow in the distance and began to move toward it. With each step, the current seemed to guide him, their light responding to his presence. As he drew closer, the glow became more distinct. It was a small star, no larger than a marble, its light dim and trembling. Theo reached out, and the star quivered, emitting a weak hum. "Hey," Theo said gently. "It's okay. I'm here to help you." The star pulsed faintly, as if acknowledging his words. Theo cupped it in his hands, its warmth barely noticeable. "You're so far from where you're supposed to be," he murmured. "But don't worry. We'll get you back." Suddenly, the currents around him darkened. Theo's heart sank as shadowy tendrils began to emerge from the void, writhing and twisting toward him. The same cold, malevolent voice from the Starforge echoed in his mind. "You cannot save it," the voice hissed. "This star is too weak and you are too small. Leave it to fade as all things must." Theo's grip on the star tightened. "You're wrong," he said, his voice steady. "Every light matters, no matter how small." The shadows recoiled slightly but didn't retreat. They swirled around him, their whispers growing louder. Theo closed his eyes, focusing on the warmth of the star in his hands. He thought of the first star he had helped, of the Starforge, and of the strength he had discovered within himself. "I won't let you win," he said firmly. "This star deserves a chance to shine." A soft glow began to emanate from Theo's chest, growing brighter with each passing moment. The shadows shrieked and writhed as the light expanded, pushing them back into the void. The currents around him brightened, their flow becoming stronger and more vibrant. When the last of the shadows vanished, Theo opened his eyes. The small star in his hands pulsed brighter, its light steady and strong. He smiled. "There you are. Let's get you home." The currents responded to Theo's determination, guiding him forward. He followed their flow, feeling a sense of purpose with every step. Soon he saw a cluster of stars in the distance, a constellation that seemed to reach out, welcoming its lost member back. Theo approached the constellation and held the star up. "This is where you belong," he said softly. The star pulsed in gratitude before floating from his hands, joining the others in a dazzling display of light. The constellation shimmered, its brilliance filling the drift. A voice echoed around him, warm and filled with pride. "You have done well, Theo. The stars will remember your kindness." Theo felt a swell of emotion as the currents began to carry him back. When he opened his eyes, he was back in his backyard, the cool grass beneath him and the sky above alive with countless stars. Among them, he spotted the newly restored constellation, its light brighter than ever. Theo lay back, a soft smile on his face. He didn't need the stars to call him anymore. He knew, deep in his heart, that he would always be ready to help them, just as they had helped him discover his own light. The nights in Willowbrook had grown colder, but the stars seemed to burn brighter than ever. For Theo, every evening brought the promise of wonder, a chance to reconnect with the cosmic expanse that felt like home. But one night, as he lay in the clearing with his telescope, a profound stillness fell over the world. The air grew heavy, and even the crickets stopped their song. Something was coming. Theo sat up, scanning the sky. For a moment, all was quiet. Then a cascade of lights erupted above him, streaking across the heavens like a meteor shower. But these weren't meteors. They were stars, hundreds of them, falling from their places in the constellations. "No," Theo whispered, his chest tightening. He had never seen anything like this before. The stars weren't just fading, they were descending, their lights flickering and dimming as they tumbled toward the earth. Before Theo could process what was happening, the golden figure emerged once more, its form shimmering into existence at the edge of the clearing. But this time its glow was dimmer, its movements slower. "Theo," it said, its voice tinged with urgency. "The balance of the cosmos is unraveling. The Starforge's light has been rekindled, but a greater force has begun to awaken, one that seeks to claim the stars for itself." Theo's heart raced. What kind of force? The figure's amber eyes darkened. A shadow older than time, known as the Void Weaver. It thrives on extinguished light, drawing power from the stars it consumes. It has begun to stretch its tendrils across the cosmos, pulling stars from their places. If it is not stopped, the night sky will be left empty, and the Starforge itself may fall. Theo's stomach churned. How can I stop something like that? The figure extended a hand, and a small object appeared in its palm. It was a pendant, shaped like a star, glowing faintly with a soft golden light. "This is a shard of the Starforge's core. It holds a fraction of its power, enough to shield you from the Void Weaver's influence. With it, you must travel to the edge of eternity, where the Void Weaver's grip is strongest. There you can ignite a light strong enough to push it back into the void." Theo took the pendant, its warmth spreading through his fingers. He nodded, determination hardening in his chest. "I'll do it." The figure's form flickered, its glow fading further. "You must hurry. The longer the Void Weaver feeds, the stronger it becomes. Follow the falling stars. They will guide your path." With that, the figure dissolved into starlight, leaving Theo alone in the clearing. He gripped the pendant tightly and turned his gaze to the sky. The stars continued to fall, their trails painting a path toward the horizon. Theo took a deep breath and set off, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and resolve. The journey to the edge of eternity was unlike anything Theo had experienced. The stars above grew dimmer the closer he came, their light swallowed by an oppressive darkness that seemed to bleed into the sky. The pendant around his neck pulsed faintly, its warmth a constant reminder of the Starforge's power. After hours of walking, Theo reached the edge of a vast chasm that seemed to stretch endlessly in every direction. The ground beneath his feet was cold and lifeless, and the air was thick with a heavy silence. In the distance, he could see it. a swirling mass of darkness, pulsating and shifting like a living thing. Tendrils of shadow reached out from its core, grasping at the falling stars and pulling them into its depths. Theo's breath caught in his throat. This was the Void Weaver. The pendant flared, its light cutting through the gloom. The Void Weaver's tendrils recoiled slightly, as if the light burned them. Theo stepped forward, clutching the pendant tightly. The ground trembled beneath him, and the shadows began to shift, converging toward him. "You cannot stop me," a voice echoed from the darkness, deep and resonant, filled with malice. "You are but a flicker, a fleeting light in an endless void. Surrender, and I may yet spare you." Theo's hands trembled, but he stood his ground. "You're wrong," he said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "Even the smallest light can push back the darkness, and I won't let you take the stars." The Void Weaver roared, its tendrils lashing out. Theo raised the pendant, its light blazing brighter. The shadows writhed and screeched, unable to touch him. He closed his eyes, focusing on the warmth of the pendant and the light within him. He thought of the stars he had saved, the constellations he had restored, and the Starforge's brilliance. "I won't let you win," he whispered. The pendant's light surged, spreading outward in a wave of golden brilliance. The Void Weaver howled, its form unraveling as the light pierced its core. Theo stepped forward, each step pushing the darkness back. The stars above began to shine brighter, their light breaking through the Void Weaver's grasp. With a final, blinding burst of light, the Void Weaver's form disintegrated, its tendrils dissolving into nothingness. The chasm beneath Theo's feet shimmered, the lifeless ground giving way to a field of starlight that stretched into infinity. Exhausted, Theo collapsed to his knees, the pendant's glow fading to a gentle warmth. The stars above were radiant once more, their light filling the sky with a brilliance that brought tears to his eyes. A soft voice echoed around him, filled with gratitude. "The stars will never forget what you have done, Theo. You have ensured their light will endure." Theo smiled, his heart swelling with pride and relief. As the field of starlight began to fade, he felt himself being lifted, carried by the same golden light that had brought him here. When he opened his eyes, he was back in his backyard, the cool grass beneath him and the sky above alive with countless shimmering stars. He lay there for a long time, staring up at the heavens, knowing that his light had become part of something far greater. And somewhere in the vast expanse of the cosmos, the stars shone a little brighter, their light a testament to the boy who had saved them once again. Life in Willowbrook returned to its tranquil rhythm after Theo's confrontation with the Void Weaver. The stars now shone with a renewed brilliance, each one a tiny beacon of hope in the vast expanse of the cosmos. But for Theo, the nights no longer held the same quiet simplicity. Every time he gazed at the heavens, he felt a deep connection, an unspoken bond with the stars he had fought to protect. Yet something lingered in his heart, a question he couldn't ignore. Was his journey truly over? One evening, as Theo sat in the backyard with his telescope, a faint shimmer caught his eye. It wasn't like the falling stars or the glow of the celestial figure he had come to know. This light was different, subtle and rhythmic, like the pulse of a heartbeat. Intrigued, Theo adjusted his telescope, focusing on a distant part of the sky near the constellation Orion. The light grew brighter, and then, to his amazement, it began to move. A trail of stardust unfurled across the night, forming an arching path that seemed to descend toward the earth. Theo's chest tightened with anticipation. He had seen many extraordinary things, but this was unlike anything before. The light came closer, its brilliance intensifying until it hovered just above the clearing. Slowly it began to take shape. Before Theo stood a figure, but not the golden guide he had grown familiar with. This being was taller, its form composed of shimmering blue and silver light that shifted like waves on an ocean. Its eyes, deep and starry, held a quiet wisdom. When it spoke, its voice was soft and resonant, like the whisper of the wind. "Theo of Willowbrook," the figure said, inclining its head. "The cosmos owes you a debt of gratitude. You have saved the light of the stars not once but twice. But now we must ask for your help once more." Theo's eyes widened. "What's happening? Is something wrong again?" The figure nodded gravely. "The Void Weaver's defeat has restored balance, but it has also stirred something older, something long forgotten. In the farthest reaches of the cosmos lies a realm known as the Nebular Cradle. It is where the first stars were born, a place of immense power and beauty. But now it is awakening, and with it, a force that could unravel all that has been saved." Theo's grip tightened on his telescope. "What kind of force?" "A remnant of the primordial darkness," the figure said, its voice heavy with sorrow. "It is known as the Umbra Titan, a being of pure void that once sought to consume the stars before they could shine. The Titan was imprisoned within the nebular cradle eons ago, but its prison is weakening. If it escapes, it will not only destroy the stars, but unmake the very fabric of existence." Theo felt a chill run through him. How can I stop something like that? The figure extended its hand, and from the folds of its light it produced a small object. It was a fragment of crystal, glowing faintly with swirling hues of silver and gold. "This is a shard of the cradle itself. It will guide you to its heart and protect you from the Titan's influence. But the rest will depend on you." Theo hesitated, the weight of the task pressing down on him. Yet he knew he couldn't turn away. The stars had come to rely on him, and he couldn't let them down. He took the shard, its warmth spreading through his fingers. "I'll do it," he said firmly. The figure smiled, a soft, radiant glow spreading across its form. "Then prepare yourself, Theo. The journey will be unlike any you have faced before. The nebular cradle exists beyond the boundaries of the known universe. To reach it, you must travel through the celestial veil, a gateway that connects all realms of light and shadow. But be warned, the veil tests all who pass through it. Only those with unwavering resolve can reach the other side." Theo nodded, determination steadying his resolve. "I'm ready." The figure raised its hands, and the clearing around Theo began to shimmer. The air filled with the soft hum of stardust, and a swirling vortex of light appeared before him. The shard in his hand pulsed in harmony with the vortex, urging him forward. Theo stepped into the light, his breath catching as he felt himself pulled upward. The world around him dissolved into a cascade of colors and stars, and for a moment he felt weightless, as though he were a part of the cosmos itself. When the light faded, Theo found himself standing before an enormous gate. It was made of interwoven strands of light and shadow, pulsating with an energy that felt both ancient and alive. This was the celestial veil. Taking a deep breath, Theo stepped forward. As he passed through the gate, the world around him shifted. The light grew dim, and a deep, resonant hum filled the air. Shapes began to emerge from the shadows, their forms indistinct but menacing. "You do not belong here," a voice echoed, low and haunting. "Turn back, child of light, before you are consumed." Theo's grip tightened on the shard. "I've come too far to turn back now," he said, his voice steady. "The stars need me." The shadows surged, forming a wall of darkness in his path. Theo closed his eyes, focusing on the warmth of the shard in his hand. He thought of the stars, their light, their stories, and the beauty they brought to the night sky. Slowly the shard began to glow brighter, its light pushing back the darkness. The shadows recoiled, and a path of light opened before him. Theo stepped forward, his resolve unwavering. As he moved deeper into the veil, the challenges grew more intense. The shadows whispered his fears, his doubts, his insecurities. But Theo held on to the shard, its light a constant reminder of his purpose. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Theo emerged from the veil. Before him stretched the nebular cradle, a realm of breathtaking beauty. Swirling clouds of stardust filled the air, illuminated by the soft glow of newborn stars. At its center, encased in a web of golden light, was the prison of the Umbra Titan. Theo approached cautiously, the shard pulsing in his hand. The Titan's presence was overwhelming, a void so vast it seemed to pull the very light from the air. As he stepped closer, the Titan stirred, its voice a deep, rumbling growl. "You dare to face me?" it said, its tone filled with contempt. "You are but a flicker, a fleeting spark in an endless void. What hope do you have against me?" Theo took a deep breath, holding the shard tightly. "Even the smallest light can push back the darkness," he said, "and I won't let you destroy what the stars have built." The Titan roared, its form writhing against its prison. Tendrils of shadow lashed out, but the shard's light flared, forming a barrier around Theo. He stepped forward, each step bringing him closer to the heart of the cradle. When he reached the prison, Theo raised the shard, its light blazing brighter than ever. The Titan howled, its shadows writhing and twisting as the light pierced its core. Theo closed his eyes, focusing all his energy on the shard. The warmth spread through him, filling him with a sense of peace and purpose. With a final, blinding burst of light, the prison sealed itself, the shadows dissipating into nothingness. The Titan's roar faded, and the cradle grew still. The newborn stars began to shine brighter, their light filling the realm with a radiant glow. Exhausted but triumphant, Theo collapsed to his knees, the shard's glow fading to a gentle warmth. A soft voice echoed around him, filled with gratitude. "You have done what few could, Theo. The stars will forever remember your courage." As the cradle began to fade, Theo felt himself being lifted once more, carried by the light of the cosmos. When he opened his eyes, he was back in his backyard, the night sky above alive with countless shimmering stars. He lay there for a long time, staring at the heavens, knowing that his journey had become part of the stars' eternal story. And somewhere in the vast expanse of the cosmos, the nebular cradle glowed with new light, a testament to the boy who had saved it. The nights in Willowbrook settled into their familiar rhythm once again, but Theo knew deep down that his connection to the stars was far from ordinary. The nebular cradle, the void weaver, and the shards of starlight had become part of him, leaving a glow that lingered in his heart even when the skies above seemed calm. Yet it was during one particularly serene evening when the air felt unusually still that Theo sensed another change in the cosmos. Theo was in his backyard with his telescope, peering at the constellations he had grown to know like old friends. The stars twinkled peacefully, but a faint vibration hummed through the air, so subtle it might have gone unnoticed by anyone else. Theo lowered the telescope, his gaze lifting to the horizon. That's when he saw it. A soft, radiant beam of light stretching from the ground to the heavens, far in the distance. It wasn't a star falling this time, nor a call from a celestial figure. It was something entirely new. Without hesitation, Theo grabbed his jacket, the shard of the nebular cradle still resting safely in his pocket, and began to follow the beam. The path it illuminated was unlike any trail he had ever walked. The grass beneath his feet shimmered faintly, as though the ground itself had absorbed some of the starlight's magic. The closer he got, the warmer the air became, carrying with it the scent of something sweet and unfamiliar, a mix of honey and something faintly metallic. When Theo finally reached the source, he found himself in a clearing surrounded by ancient, gnarled trees. At its center stood a crystalline structure, its surface glowing with shifting colors that seemed to flow like liquid light. The beam he had followed emanated from this structure, reaching high into the heavens. As Theo approached, the shard in his pocket pulsed faintly, resonating with the structure as though greeting an old friend. "You have come," a voice echoed, soft and melodic, but different from the celestial figures he had encountered before. Theo turned to see a being emerge from the crystalline structure itself. Its form was fluid and translucent, its edges shimmering with the hues of 1,000 sunsets. Its eyes, two bright orbs of light, radiated a warmth that immediately put Theo at ease. "I'm Theo," he said cautiously, though he couldn't shake the feeling that this being already knew who he was. "Why did you call me here?" The being inclined its head. "You are known to the stars, Theo. Your light has reached the farthest corners of the cosmos, and your courage has restored what many thought lost. But the stars themselves are not the only ones who need saving. The guardians of the veil, the keepers of balance between light and shadow, have grown weak. Their strength was tied to the nebular cradle, and though the Titan was subdued, its presence has left a scar on the veil." Theo frowned, his hand instinctively brushing against the shard in his pocket. "What can I do? I thought I fixed things when I stopped the Titan." The being's form shimmered, its light shifting in soft waves. "You did, brave one, but the veil itself, The boundary that holds the balance of all realms requires restoration, and for that, a new guardian must rise. Theo's breath caught. A new guardian? You mean me? The being nodded. You have shown the resolve, the compassion, and the strength that the veil requires. The shard you carry is not just a fragment of the cradle. It is a key to becoming part of the veil itself. But the choice is yours, Theo. To accept this path is to embrace the cosmos as your home. It means leaving behind the simplicity of life as you know it, yet becoming something far greater. Theo's mind raced. The thought of leaving Willowbrook, his telescope, and his quiet nights under the stars filled him with a pang of sadness. But then he thought of the light he had restored, the stars that now shone brighter because of him, and the beauty of the universe he had come to know. Could he truly turn away from the stars now? If I do this, Theo said slowly, what happens to my life here, my family, my home? The being's gaze softened. You will remain connected to this world, Theo. The veil touches all realms, and your light will guide those who look to the stars. You will not be forgotten, nor will you forget. But your essence will become part of something infinite, something eternal. Theo took a deep breath, his fingers curling around the shard. The warmth it emitted was comforting, like a gentle reminder of all he had achieved. He looked up at the stars, their brilliance reflected in his eyes, and nodded. I'll do it, he said. I'll become the guardian. The being's form brightened, its light enveloping Theo in a cocoon of warmth. The crystalline structure pulsed with energy, and the shard in Theo's hand began to glow, its light merging with the structure. Theo felt a surge of energy coursing through him, a sensation both exhilarating and humbling. The stars above seemed to ripple in response, their light forming constellations that had never been seen before. As the light around him intensified, Theo felt his body becoming lighter, as though he were dissolving into the very fabric of the cosmos. But it wasn't frightening. It was peaceful, like returning to a home he had always known but never realized existed. When the light finally subsided, Theo stood at the heart of the veil. The swirling strands of light and shadow stretched endlessly around him, their balance restored. He could feel the pulse of the cosmos, the gentle hum of every star, every constellation, and every fragment of light and dark that made up existence. He was no longer just Theo of Willowbrook. He was the guardian of the veil, a part of the eternal story of the stars. Back in Willowbrook, the clearing where the crystalline structure had stood was now silent, save for the soft rustle of the wind. The stars above shone brighter than ever, and if one looked closely, they might notice a new constellation forming. A figure standing tall, holding a shard of light, watching over the cosmos with unwavering resolve. And in that constellation Theo's story lived on, a beacon of hope and courage for all who gazed at the night sky.